The first duty of government is to protect our rights.
It's our job to maintain the proper role of government in what we were tasked to do.
If you really want to doge, this is how you doge. You don't vote for bad legislation that expands government. Thank you.
Now we're talking about taxpayer money, and we're talking about accountability. It is their money. This isn't a government program we're actually spending on. We're actually giving it back to the people of Idaho.
There's other options for making our ballots more secure, such as using watermarks or putting holograms on the ballots.
And I think that that's what we need to look at more, is trying to get back to what we used to be, where our churches and our families took care of each other instead of relying on the state.
I asked the question rhetorically, if we gave them another $1 billion, they wouldn't be happy. Well, we've given them $2 more billion, and it's not enough.
We need to start making Idaho first. We need to start making America first.
Other states like Texas and Florida have enacted similar laws to address illegal immigration, both locally and in their communities. And Idaho has the right to protect itself when the federal government has failed to do that.
COVID presented us with quite the enigma. We didn't really know what it was or what to do, but that is no excuse to violate the rights of the citizens of the state of Idaho.
I say vote no on this and let the teachers teach and quit bringing in coaches to teach the teachers to teach, and let's get education going again in Idaho.
I don't know what's coming after this current administration for the feds, and we need this law because our federal laws on immigration have failed.
Mr. President, I think it's incumbent upon us to allow parents to use their hard-earned dollars to provide what's best for their children.
If I was looking at a business and I was looking at these figures, there would be heads rolling because this is unsustainable.
My concern is that the resilience of Idahoans who believe in self-reliance and self-responsibility will be eroded.
We need to be protecting our First Amendment rights, not inventing ways to slowly chip away at them.
The First Amendment and our freedom of religion, freedom of speech are our first liberties. They are so important. We don't have the rest without them.
Yeah, watch it.
Come on, guys.
Well, welcome everybody. Hello, folks. It is 11:30 in Boise and 10:30, all points north of the time zone bridge along Highway 95. You know what I'm talking about. Welcome back to Idaho Signal. I am Matt Edwards, and we've got a packed show. We'll continue to see how the legislature is going to respond to Governor Little's plan to balance the budget this year and what that really means for our conservative brethren. In just a few moments, Fred Birnbaum from the Idaho Freedom Foundation will join us. Fred's got a sharp new article out breaking down the governor's budget proposal. And as per Birnbaum's style, it doesn't pull any punches, folks. He argues that while Little avoids some big mistakes like dipping into the rainy day fund or jacking up taxes, the plan's mostly a Band-Aid, relying on one-time gimmicks and leaving the real structural reforms on the table. We're looking at no major program eliminations and risky low-ending balances that could force a special session if revenues dip even a little. And we're still pumping more money into health and welfare. Fred is optimistic, though, that the legislature can step up and do the heavy lifting for a long-term fiscal sanity. And he'll definitely share how we get there without giving away the store. And later, we'll pivot over to Blaine Conzatti, president of the Idaho Family Policy Center, to unpack their brand new poll on what Idaho voters really think about when it comes to the issues that matter most to families heading into the session. This survey is over 400 likely voters. It's a wake-up call, folks, especially for Christian conservatives who are dead set on preserving Idaho as the absolute best place to raise a family. The numbers show a clear, overwhelming mandate from everyday Idahoans who want to protect our kids, defend our values, and push back against the cultural drift that's infecting so many other states. It's incredible. But Kanzadi will be here. He'll walk us through these results and reveal the true appetite that we all have here for religious liberty, family protection, and common sense policies, and why the legislature has no excuse to sit on the sidelines anymore for some of this stuff. This isn't just data, folks. It's ammunition. This is the ammunition you need to keep fighting to keep Idaho free, faithful, family first. But none of this happens, folks, without you. For Idaho to win on the budgets that make sense, policies that protect our kids, and freedoms that honor our faith, you've got to stay activated. The time for complacency is over. That BS is killing us. You need to reach out to your legislators constantly. You need to tell them what you think. You need to hold their feet to the fire, and you need to call them out. Call them out when you see it. And you need to call into this show. Voice your opinions, share your concerns. We'll play them loud and clear. And we're going to make damn sure that those in the Capitol hear your every word. This is our home, and we ride together. All right, joining me now from the Idaho Freedom Foundation is Fred Birnbaum. Fred, it's so glad to see you. We are rocking and rolling. We got off to a great start with all this hoopla over what are we going to do to balance this budget. And you've got this fantastic article that you put out. We'll show it up on screen, but walk us through your reaction first to the governor's speech and what you see lies ahead.
Well, good morning, Matt, and thanks for having me. And I always look forward to talking about the budget, good or bad. So there's an old saying, in order to solve a problem, you have to properly define it. And by that, I think your viewers, listeners need to understand that spending from the last 6 years, from roughly fiscal 2020 to 26, is up about 60%, all funds. So when we're properly defining the problem, it is a spending problem. It is not a revenue problem. Democrats and progressives would like to say, oh, it's because we've cut taxes. But really, we've grown spending a lot, as I just demonstrated, and revenues have actually increased, trend-wise for that period. Yes, they flattened out, but my gosh, after growing so much, you would expect them to flatten out when you cut taxes. That's the point. So point one is it's a spending problem. And I think that everyone needs to understand that. So then the second question is, what do we do about it? And that's where we have some differences with the governor. So the governor's proposal basically is, okay, we have this imbalance. Let's do some temporary measures in the current year. So we're in fiscal 26. And let's do some temporary measures next year. And hopefully everything will right size again. And that's not the Idaho approach. I mean, that isn't how we should do it. And I'm just going to give you a couple of examples. What the governor said for the current fiscal year is, let's pull back about $100 million. And some of the things I'm going to read that he said will take $10 million from the In-Demand Careers Fund, $15 million from the Water Pollution Control Funds, $45 million from strategic ITD projects, cancel building projects, and let's get about $100 million there. Let's make some temporary spending reductions, which he probably will make ongoing. And we have therefore a balanced budget. The problem is he's just using one-time money to balance it. On an ongoing basis, it's not balanced. And that same logic he's using to carry forward to 2027. And there, what he's doing, which will probably interest some of your listeners, he's taking about $100 million of interest earnings that would normally be generated by the Budget Stabilization Fund, the Public Education Stabilization Fund, the Millennium Fund. So all these funds have a corpus, they have a lot of money, and then they earn interest, of course, just like our bank accounts. So he's saying, well, let's take the interest and divert that to the general fund. Well, that's not a sustainable approach. Is he cutting spending? Yes. Is he cutting enough? No. So I think that's the frame up that I think your viewers should understand.
Yeah, and talk to me about, this increase, like you said, from 2020 to now, we've seen a 60% increase in spending, correct? Spending?
Correct.
So in terms of revenue, with the population growth and inflation, even if you want to call it that, if that's part of it, has revenue also gone that high?
It's tracked pretty much the same, because if it hadn't, obviously we'd be at a deficit until now. It started to flatten off this year, but yes, revenue's grown dramatically.
Right.
And it's probably hard for some people to get their head around. It's like, well, how do you cut taxes and revenue grows? Well, there's a couple reasons. Money doesn't leave the economy when you cut taxes. You return it to taxpayers, and they buy things, they invest in businesses, and so they spend it, which of course has economic growth consequences. And then people are moving to Idaho. They're moving here for the reasons you've discussed previously on many of your shows. They want liberty, they want less government, less regulation. So they're bringing money. They're bringing retirement checks, whatever they're bringing businesses. So yes, you can have an environment where you dramatically reduce rates, but still bring in more dollars.
But Fred, just because the government is generating revenue doesn't necessarily they need to go create all these new programs and start. I mean, basically they're saying, like, let's build some new roads. Let's make sure the infrastructure is there to handle all this. But we don't need to be like if I was like a family, and I'm like, oh, I had a great year, let's go on vacation, right? Because that's our money. But we're still taught this is the government's money, is not the government's money, right?
Exactly. And so what they should have done, and you're bringing up a good point, is they cut taxes, obviously, and then they increase spending more than they cut taxes, would be the short answer. And it should have been the other way around. They should have cut taxes more than they increased the spending. But now we are where we are. And I think it was very tempting for someone like Governor Little and certain politicians to be able to boast, well, we spent more and we cut your taxes. Fine, that works until it doesn't. And part of the reason it doesn't work is spending is a layer cake, right? It just layers on top of each other. So at some point, if you cut taxes and you keep spending, you're going to get an imbalance. And the fiscally conservative approach would be to say, yes, revenues are up, but we're not going to just spend more because we can. We're going to control spending. We're going to limit it to population plus inflation. And that's still very generous. And when we've exceeded that, and that's just not my saying it, JFAC, the Joint Finance Committee, did a whole presentation showing that spending growth has outstripped population plus inflation. So yes, we've overspent. So now we should get to, okay, what do we do about it? And I'm going to talk about a couple things, a couple of ideas. They probably won't surprise you. I'm going to start by talking about the biggest elephant in the budget, Medicaid and health and welfare. And so despite all these other cuts, and the governor has suggested some de minimis Medicaid cuts, he doesn't want to tackle the elephant in the room, and that's the expansion of the able-bodied population. And that element of Medicaid, not the Medicaid that goes to disabled kids and pregnant women, the able-bodied population piece, that's grown from a little over 400 million to about 1.3 billion, since it was enacted several years ago. And this year, despite all the other cuts, Medicaid is supposed to increase 4.3% to about $5.5 billion, and health and welfare overall, $500 million, an 8.5% increase. And that would put health and welfare at nearly half, 45% of Idaho's total budget, meaning just health and welfare would be just about half compared to everything else: roads, bridges, schools, state police, prisons, higher ed, K through 12. All that is equal to just health and welfare spending. And so the governor's not really willing to tackle that. And we would say that now is the time to repeal Medicaid expansion. That would save about $100 million to the general fund ongoing, and it would save about $1.3 billion when you include federal dollars, which, by the way, are not free. They're borrowed from our grandkids. The second, go ahead.
I was just going to ask, when it comes to this, because this is a very contentious point, because people think they hear cut Medicaid, it's like, oh, we're cutting, for the poor and for the elderly and the infirmed and so forth. But there was a letter that was sent to the DOJ committee over the interim that talked about how employers can't get their employees to work more than 28 hours a week because they don't want to lose their Medicaid expansion benefits, rather than just work 40 hours, get paid more, and then just pay a small amount for the employer's offering healthcare insurance. I mean, this type of thing is really what erodes society. We get people dependent on the government, and I mean, this is, we don't have to get into the philosophy of it, but like, I feel like this is the whole point of like why we want to get rid of the expansion element.
Well, you summarized it perfectly, and that's exactly what happened as you described in Doge, where employers are being told by employees, don't give me more hours because I don't want to lose my Medicaid. And these are bona fide companies with good jobs. And not only that, if you do work 30 or 40 hours, you can get very reasonably priced health insurance because it is subsidized. And whether we agree with subsidies or not, we would certainly prefer people to work and pay something for their insurance than just get it for free. I don't want to spend all your time on Medicaid, but I do want to say one thing. One last closing comment on Medicaid. The per patient costs for 4 years, these are the actual expenditures from 21 to 25, they're up 94%. And that's LSO numbers. And so the whole notion that you give people health care, they're going to be healthier and use less health care. No, when you give people something they don't pay anything for, they avail themselves to the services. It's like, well, it's free to me. Why would I care about the extra MRI? I'm not paying a nickel for. Or if the doctor wants to suggest I go on this course of medication where some people might say, do I really need that? It's like, sure, I'm not paying for it. And so this is a fact. LSO numbers, it's actually on the Doge website. There's a slide that shows per person Medicaid costs. Do the math. They're up 94%, 21 per person. Way more than inflation.
Yeah. Okay, get to some of the other points you had there.
So the other one is the governor boasts about launch, and that is the In-Demand Careers Fund. And that's about 75, 80 million ongoing. And that would be another spending cut. It's a new program. It's another one of these post-secondary programs. We have a lot of things that we offer to young people. And this one is targeted by some of the Workforce Development Council people. Well, we get to pick what's your in-demand careers, and then we'll give kids money for that. That should be rescinded. So if you did those two things, we would, on the general fund, you'd have roughly 175, 180 million of ongoing cuts.
Yeah.
And by the way, the ongoing deficit is about 103. There are many more ideas. We could spend hours discussing them, but those are a couple. And really, the launch isn't essential. If it was, how did we survive from statehood to about 2 years ago without it? So
yeah.
These are the things that get back to the premise: is what is the proper role of government, and if we're defining the problem as too much spending, what spending do we cut? There are a lot of things I think the legislature can and will do.
Governor Little touted that President Trump was a quote a fan of launch because it fit in with something that at least at the federal level, or an idea that the Trump administration had with launch, that it related to it. Is that entirely true? Is this launch sort of a Trump style plan? Because if it is, it's going to be a little hard to sell to the public at this point.
Well, I think we should respect the fact that no president can be involved in the details of 50 state budgets. I think it would be fair to state that President Trump and really all of us believe in technical education, but we already have career technical education. And so you can endorse the notion of, or the concept that it's appropriate to spend public money on training young people without endorsing a specific program. So does Trump know all of the details of launch, how it came about, who picks the jobs, that we have other CTE opportunities, that we have community colleges, that this is extra? It's not fair to assume he knows that. So I think that's sort of a misdirection.
Yeah.
Does Trump know that we have an ongoing structural budget deficit and we have to make tough decisions? So I wouldn't get hung up on that, and I would encourage your viewers to support JFAC, particularly the two co-chairs, Senator Groh and Representative Tanner. They know how to properly define the problem. The way they opened the committee this week, which was a call to restrain spending, makes a lot of sense. Everyone should encourage them to do that. They should pick up the mantle from the governor and say, okay, you took some timid steps. We're going to do the bold ones. We're going to structurally balance the budget for the people of Idaho. We're not going to get distracted by these pleas. And you hear the Democrats, one in particular, Senator Wintrow, whining a lot. That's probably a good sign.
Yes.
Because they're always for more spending. And if they're happy, that must mean that we're spending way too much. Right. So to the extent that the progressives and the Democrats are upset with the cuts, that's probably a sign that we're headed in the right direction.
Yeah. One of the things that came out during the summer about launch was the fact that it looks as though during a presentation to JFAC during the break that there was that the state is now going to have to go out and hire collection agency to go after some of the launch money that was sent out that was never used. And that made me think, well, I thought, does the money go to the student? Does the money go directly to the school? So I'm kind of a little mixed messaging on that. But again, when we think about Minnesota and the fraud and all that sort of stuff, like here we are, we've created a program that now we have to pay a collection agency to probably get back only a small amount of that money, because usually when collections get involved, there's deals, there's settlements and that sort of thing. So, none of this is ever a good idea. No, it sounds like.
Yeah, I think that is the fundamental challenge with programs, entitlement programs, all these programs, is that it's very easy to send the money out. It's much harder to ensure that it's being spent appropriately. You have the direct fraud, which is the Somali stuff in Minnesota, where they just set up phony daycares and weren't even educating. But you can have a level of fraud that's just inefficiency and waste, or in the case of a student not spending it, that would be direct fraud. But let's just say they pursued a course of study that really didn't even work out. They figured, well, I'm going to get the money. I'll just try it. I'll do it for a few years, and I'll go move to another state. So that's not necessarily fraud, but it's not the proper use of taxpayers' money. And I just think when you spend a lot of money, it's very hard to keep track of. You and I can manage our family budget, but if we had to keep track of $14 billion, that'd be hard. And at the federal level, it's now $7 trillion. That's really hard to keep track of, especially when you're distributing it to all these states, who then distribute it to all these agencies, all these individuals. And that's why we have to take a step back. We're spending too much money, and we're not really improving lives. A lot of people don't. We spent a fortune on healthcare. Are we making people healthier? I don't know. I know we're making the bottom line of the insurers and the hospitals healthier, but are patients getting healthier? Just because we've spent, over $5 billion on Medicaid, are people commensurately healthier? And I'm not seeing that, honestly, in statistics.
And then the last thing I want to ask you about, the governor said he's not going to touch K through 12 funding at all. Yet we keep hearing about something about things being double paid and double dipping for one service, and two different entities getting paid for one service, and things like that. That again, it's either incompetence or it's fraud or it's just outright mismanagement. I don't know what it is, but there's plenty, like you say, we could spend hours on this, finding everything wrong with it. But how can you just flat out say, oh, but we're never going to touch this particular piece of our pie?
Well, you shouldn't. And he boasted that spending is up 70% for K through 12, but he didn't say that reading scores are up 70% or math aptitude. In fact, they're barely up at all. And so really a businessman would say, okay, so we spent 70% more. You don't even have to be a business person, but anyone would say, yeah, we haven't improved outcomes. Does that mean that the money is driving results? The answer is no. So why would we keep putting more money in? We think if we spent 100% more, that we're going to get the results when we spent 70% more and didn't. So I think the governor is wrong-minded on this. I think he's just trying to appease what he sees as a very large interest group, public education lobby. And the answer they always want to hear is more money. And so he's delivering on that. The public should ask for, we want better results. And if the money brings results, fine. But if it doesn't, we should have alternatives. And that's why we strongly supported school choice. And we don't think that a fiscal downturn should be used as a reason to rescind it. In fact, if the results don't come from the public system, parents have a right to an alternative with their tax dollars. We believe that, and you've kind of brought that up in your question.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, Fred. Well, thanks for coming on today. We'll definitely be sharing this article. Where can people find you and follow your work?
So we're idahofreedom.org. That's our website, and people can email me at fred@idahofreedom.org, and I'll be happy to answer any budget questions.
Awesome. All right. Well, thanks, Fred. We'll have you back soon.
Thanks a lot, Matt.
All right. Take care. Oh, very nice. It's always good to talk to Fred. The man's got all of the numbers, all of the data. He's been crunching them forever. And I always told him, I said, why don't you just get in there and like do it yourself, you know? But I don't blame him, man. I couldn't handle it myself. All right. Let's see here. We've got, where's my script? Because we got American Smoke Company we got to chat about. And I love this American Smoke Company. They've got these smoked salts. Check out these flavor profiles. You got pecan, mesquite. That's the kind of wood that they use to smoke these salts. And if you love that perfect smoky flavor on your meat, your eggs, or your grilled veggies, whatever it is, you don't want to go out there and fire up the smoker and wait, hours. You take some of this. You can cure it on your meat overnight. You can throw it on some burgers, 20 minutes beforehand. Throw it on some eggs as they're finishing. And you get some real authentic smoke flavor using American Pacific Ocean sea salt. Fantastic stuff. I use it all the time. No additives, just clean, bold flavor. Head over to americansmokeco.com. Your taste buds will thank you. American Smoke Company, real smoke, real American. We'll be right back.
That's exactly what happened. You want to pull the tape? You can pull the tape because we now got video.
Idaho is the dirt under your fingernails after an honest day's work. Idaho is the hug around your neck when your daughter spells her first word. Idaho is the written word of the law, steadfast and impartial, guarding liberty for all. Idaho is the family rifle passed down, a legacy of protection and the right to stand firm. Idaho is the echo of your own voice, unshaken and free, standing tall among the world's silenced. Idaho is the home that's built to weather storms, not empty wallets. Idaho is the quiet trust between a patient and healer, unbroken and sacred. Idaho is the hymn carried by the Spirit, gathering neighbors together in faith and purpose. Idaho is the laughter around a campfire, a family's bond growing stronger with every word. Idaho is the pioneer's will, firm and clear. We govern ourselves, free and unbound. Idaho is what America was. Let's keep it that way. Ask your legislator to sign the Citizens Alliance of Idaho pledge to preserve our shared values. We ride together.
All right, let's talk about something that happened at the Capitol yesterday. Apparently it was agriculture, I can't even say it, Agriculture Day down at the Capitol, and that's where a bunch of the different agricultural interests, set up booths, and they have events and they have food out, or they have all this sort of jazz and everything. And I kind of asked somebody, I said, hey, are they doing anything down there recruitment wise? Are they recruiting young Americans to go out and start a career in agriculture? Because we keep hearing that agriculture is filled with employees and workers that aren't American, right? We've got a problem where we have to hire illegal, I'm sorry, I don't want to get ahead of my skis here. They have to hire foreign nationals who come into the country looking for work because Americans and Idahoans simply don't want to do that work. And I always think about that when you hear that over and over and over and over in the years. And over the summer, we released a video. We thought, you know what? Maybe it's because you guys aren't recruiting hard enough. Maybe you're not out there sending out a good message, and you're trying to say, you're not doing the work trying to say, hey, we need our fifth, seventh, eighth generation young people to get excited about carrying on the family business or starting a family business in agriculture, because you're feeding America, right? Like that. I mean, there's so much beautiful history in our country that we are a country of farmers, and we're losing that by importing the third world to do the work that we should be doing. And so we put a challenge out there to the agricultural industry, to the dairy industry, and so forth, that said, hey, why don't you produce some sort of marketing tools like the military does? Right, like the Army or the Marines, where they put out this stuff, and they're asking people to come, put their lives on the line for their country by joining the Marines. And we thought, well, what if you had some sort of marketing tool that maybe enticed the youth and enticed young people and the older generation to get involved again. So we came up with this quick, I think it's about a 60-second ad for the to go work and start a career in the agricultural industry. Check it out.
This ain't no easy ride. Out here, the dirt tests you. The cattle call you to lead. The earth dares you to dig deep. Idaho is where the bold roll up and stake their claim. Roots don't just grow, they sprout. Every blister, every dawn, it's yours. Feeding a nation, forging the way. Start now, sweat hard, and one day, you're the one calling the shots. Americans don't wait, we act. Long days shape you. Tough, free, shepherds of a sacred land. This is your birthright. You in? Apply now for a career in Idaho agriculture. Dig in, rise up.
It's that simple, folks. It's that simple. Come on now. That video is free to any agricultural industry who wants to use it and send it out there on the air. All right. I promised Blaine Kanzati from the Idaho Family Policy Center, and I hope we can deliver. There he is, Mr. Kanzati. Welcome to the program, sir. You guys put out a poll that had some very fascinating, interesting, overwhelming results that we want to get through. So I do want to jump right into it, but I do want to ask you, we just had the governor's address. It was mainly focused on the budget, and I know you guys don't necessarily crunch the numbers over there, but in general, give us your overall reaction, and then we'll jump into the poll.
Yeah, I mean, the governor identified problems that we'll be facing as a state, especially when it comes to the budgetary issues. Like you said, Matt, we don't really focus on that as much, but certainly one thing that I do appreciate was the governor's strong support for the Fairness in Women's Sports Act that was sponsored by Representative Barb Ehart and Senator Mary Souza back in 2020. We worked with ADF on that legislation, and the governor's wholehearted support for that law, which was just before the Supreme Court yesterday in oral arguments, was very welcome. So definitely appreciate the governor taking a strong stand on that issue. We need to protect our girls from biological males invading their spaces, from harming them in sports that are designated for girls, but where biological men have such large lung capacities and muscular advantages and skeletal advantages and other physiological advantages over girls. And hopefully, Lord willing, the Supreme Court's going to uphold that law. It's going to go into effect, and girls' sports in Idaho will finally be protected.
Yeah, absolutely. And kudos to everybody who was involved in that. And so then let's jump right in, because one of the first things on your poll here was maintaining separate public restrooms on the basis of biological sex. So we've kind of already alluded to, we've gotten over the hurdle of taking care of this in schools and on campuses and women's prisons and that sort of thing. But we've had this incident up north. I think former Senator Herndon highlighted something that happened in Bonner County at a women's gym or locker facility. Walk us through this this particular poll here.
Yeah. So every year, Idaho Family Policy Center does public opinion polling of likely Idaho voters. And the way that we define likely Idaho voter is someone who is a registered voter and is likely to vote, very or somewhat likely to vote in the upcoming general election. So these are voters that are voting for candidates. That's really good data for our legislators and our policymakers, our governor, to kind of understand where voters are at. The polling that we do is demographically representative. It's a mix of landline and mobile numbers, and very scientifically accurate kind of to get where the average Idaho voter is on these important issues for our Idaho families. So like you said, the public restroom issue is one of those issues that just has widespread support among likely Idaho voters. I think the numbers were like 77.4% of likely Idaho voters, so over 3/4 of likely Idaho voters support maintaining separate public restrooms on the basis of biological sex. Only 18% of Idaho voters disagree with that. What's interesting from the polling, and we do some demographic analysis to kind of figure out who supports what and kind of splice and dice the data. Newer Idahoans are far more supportive of maintaining separate public restrooms based on biological sex than native Idahoans. So this kind of squares with the trend that we've seen in all of our polling data, where the people moving into Idaho are actually more conservative than the native Idahoans. And that's a good thing, right? With how fast our state is growing and how many new people are moving in, especially from liberal states. I know a lot of Idahoans are worried, are these newcomers as conservative? Well, the good news is they're actually more conservative on these issues.
Yeah, and then when you jump down on the next one, imposing criminal penalties on men who violate that, it's fairly the same. It looks like a bunch of people decided they went from agreeing fully, like they did before, to going neutral on the matter, rather than jump over to disagree. That's it. That's interesting. And so when you say criminal penalties, how I don't know if you're working on legislation for all of these things, but when you say criminal penalties, how high, how far, what do you think is a fair, is it being arrested, like for lewd conduct kind of thing?
Yeah, so there's different ways that we can approach this issue, right? We can either create a duty for the businesses and the public buildings to maintain separate restrooms and locker rooms and showers for biological males and biological females. And part of that is holding them accountable as to whether they do that. You can do that through civil liability. You can do that through other means. I think that's one important strategy. One important piece of the puzzle is we do want to hold public buildings accountable if they fail to take reasonable steps to restrict the access, especially of biological males, into girls' restrooms, but vice versa as well. But then another way to handle this is to create criminal penalties for the person who willfully and knowingly uses the wrong restroom. We have legislation ready to go that would hold the public buildings civilly liable. I know some other legislators have legislation ready to go that would create criminal penalties. I think those are two complementary ways to take on this issue, because you need both, right? You need disincentives for the buildings, and you need disincentives for the individuals that want to use the wrong restrooms. And so both of those together, I think, make for a good strategy.
Yeah. All right. I want to jump ahead on the poll real quick, just so we don't miss this. But this was one of the highest, if not the highest, agreed with question when you asked, should Idaho require app providers to obtain parental consent before children can download apps on their cell phones and devices? Now, we had Senator Ben Taves on yesterday talking about this, and that there seems to be many different tactics on how to actually do that. But overall, it appears here that something has to be done, right?
Yeah. So 82% of likely Idaho voters want to require parental consent for children's app downloads. So your child has a cell phone, they want to download Instagram or Facebook or whatever app from the App Store. Most Idaho, overwhelming, 82% is huge, Matt, you know this from polling, want there to be legal requirements for parents to consent before a child is able to download an app. And then we also had a question on disabling addictive social media features for teen accounts. So this is another big thing. In some states, there's been legislation called Shazam, which is a funny name, but basically the idea is you require the social media companies to maintain the age of all their users, which they already do. And then they have to disable the addictive features like infinite scrolling and other addictive features to try to reduce kids' dependency on those apps. 76% of likely Idaho voters supported that proposal. Wow. So, I think we all realize that kids need to be protected from social media. The question is, how do we do it, as you're saying? And there are certainly different approaches. But again, I like the belt and suspenders approach. We need to hold the social media companies accountable. We need to hold the app stores accountable. We also need to provide tools for parents. And so, anything that accomplishes any or all of those, I think we would be supportive of.
Yeah, and that's a big thing because I don't want government to be able to like restrict and try to solve every problem. It's about trying to enable the parents to actually have the tools that they need in order to. I mean, it's easy for one to just say, okay, then don't give your kids phones until they're 18, right? But that's not, and some families can do that, but not everybody can do that, and that's not realistic. And so so I feel like, rather than just like, full on becoming like tyrants and just saying like it's fully illegal for anything, for these to happen, we at least have to give parents the tools necessary or an idea of how to do this by asking and requesting, and if need be, telling companies that like, look, if your stuff is going in the hands of our children, we have to be responsible about it.
Yeah, and there's certainly principles, right, in our legal system that would provide the foundation for those sorts of parent-first reforms. One of those is that children can't consent to content. So how do they consent to the terms of an app download without parental consent? So those types of tools already exist, and the question is, how do we apply it to this new landscape of social media?
Right. Okay, and then the other one on religious freedom, you have one in here: protecting religious freedom for business owners with sincerely held beliefs. Is this related to something similar to like the cake maker scenario, where the cake maker doesn't want to make a cake for a same-sex marriage wedding or something along those lines? Is that what we're talking about here?
Yeah, so of course everyone knows Jack Phillips, right? The cake baker out of Colorado, whose case has gone to the U.S. Supreme Court a couple times and bounced all around, and he's really been persecuted for holding to his sincerely held religious beliefs and declining to make a cake for a same-sex wedding that he didn't agree with. But we've seen other examples, even up in Coeur d'Alene about 10 years ago. The Knapp family, who owned the Hitching Post at the time, they were threatened with jail time by Coeur d'Alene if they refused to perform a same-sex wedding. They ultimately sued the city and got a partial exemption just for them. But we had a photographer out in Meridian reach out to us over the summer, and she was concerned because a same-sex couple had reached out to her wanting newborn pictures, and she didn't want to take those pictures because she didn't want to support, that lifestyle. And under the Meridian sexual orientation, gender identity ordinance, that would have been unlawful discrimination, and she could have been liable there. Wow. So it's a real problem here in Idaho, just like in other states. And all our legislation would do, which has, again, supermajority support, 71% of likely Idaho voters want religious freedom protections for small business owners who operate their business according to their sincerely held religious beliefs. All our legislation would do, Matt, is it would preempt local ordinances to the extent that they exceed the Idaho anti-discrimination law in state code. And we don't have categories in state code for sexual orientation and gender identity. And so, the Coeur d'Alene ordinance, the Boise ordinance, the Meridian ordinance, there's 20 cities or municipalities across the state that have these SOGI ordinances. All of those would be preempted, and religious small business owners would have their rights protected.
Wow. Yeah. All right. Can you tell me a little bit about your legal defense center that just got up and what they're up to?
Yeah. So we're super excited about the IFPC Legal Center that we finally launched. For a long time now, we've realized that there's a need in Idaho for a conservative law firm that's willing to take on public interest cases pro bono and help litigate and defend the constitutional rights of Idahoans. We hired Kayla Pierce, a former Deputy Attorney General under Raul Labrador, as our director. We have several other attorneys on the team, including Theo Wold, the former Solicitor General for the state of Idaho. He's on our team part-time as an advisor, and we are going to be taking on those cases, defending the constitutional rights and the religious freedom of Idahoans, and taking the fights that we've been winning in the policy world and the legislative realm to the courts, and ensuring that our rights are defended there as well.
Oh man, that's so awesome. I remember when you announced that a couple of years ago. I'm like, oh man, I hope they get that online. That is very crucial. So kudos to you. Congrats on that. Okay, well, where can people find this poll, and how can they get involved with you guys?
Yeah, so we sent it to our email list yesterday. We'll be putting it on the website today, idahofamily.org, idahofamily.org. And, the good thing is, Matt, I'm sure you've been hearing this from others as well, we're starting to see the public shift back in our direction again. on these issues. We've been doing this poll for years, and I think we've seen probably an 8 percentage point shift back in our direction on these important issues, where, you know, most of these issues now are 75, 80% support, which is just great. So common sense is coming back, people. Be excited.
We're back. We're back.
Yep.
It's beginning to smell like America again.
That's right. That's right.
All right, Blaine, we'll check back in with you throughout the year and wish you much success on this legislation. And as soon as we know who's carrying these bills and when they're coming, we'll definitely be talking more about them. So thanks again.
All right. Sounds good, Matt. God bless.
All right. You too. All right. Very nice. I believe we have Brian Allman in here. Let's bring him in and get him some reaction to what's been going on down at the Capitol, what's he heard on the program today, and all the sorts of whatever hoopla he has. Brian, it's good to see you. What's happening out there?
Well, as usual, we had the big start on Monday with the governor's address and everybody scurrying around. The last couple of days have, outside of JFAC, really been kind of a slow start. All the committees are starting to meet today, but it's just an organizational meeting. They get together and say, hey, we're a committee now, and we'll see you tomorrow. But JFAC obviously has been busy. They met yesterday morning. They met this morning. Senator Groh has set forth an ambitious target of getting the revenue forecast numbers by the end of the week, I believe I heard. The Revenue Projection Committee, there's actually another committee that meets to discuss the economic outlook of the next year or two. They're actually meeting this afternoon. It looks like a 4-hour meeting. I might hang out for a little while there and see what they're talking about and see what they come up with. But that's really what's going on, because you can't start spending money until you know how much money you have to spend. And constitutionally, our state government has to have a balanced budget. They have to be able to pay their bills. They can't take on debt like the federal government. They can't print money like the federal government. So they've got to make sure that the inputs match the outputs. And getting that revenue projection number is important, because last year it took them until March to get it done. And that put a lot of uncertainty over everything. And of course, the Democrats will tell you they put it way too high. Some Republicans say that too. On the other hand, others say, well, you put it high and we got some tax cuts done, and anything left, well, I guess we'll just have to cut the budget. Oh, no.
Oh, no. Well, interesting on that. I want to play this clip from yesterday with Representative Tanner, who's now the co-chair of JFAC, and kind of get your reaction on this, because it was pretty. I just, this was day one, and he's already not taking some of these things lightly. Play this clip. We'll let it run for a little bit.
Beyond that, I do have severe concerns, and I think it was brought up within the committee, and one of the questions was your ongoing ending balance being in the negative. Looks like we are trying to right side on the one-time aspects, but realistically, that doesn't balance. You can get a positive ending balance, but you're balancing on hope, and I think you actually stated hope, and I think you actually stated betting as well in your comments, as well as assumptions. I think those are all difficult things when we are looking at balancing a budget in general. And I think the thing that concerns me probably the most out of anything that's on here is that a lot of your reductions, a lot of your cuts do require policy decisions. And it's easy when you guys are coming forward to this committee with asks and additions, when you're adding to the budget and there's money on the table and you guys are wanting to expand it into something. But it's another thing when you actually are looking at cuts, because we can debate if we want to spend it there or not on the cuts to make your balance sheet work. If you were to remove those items out, because you don't have that ability to actually even say this is what we're recommending for these additions when it's cuts. I don't know if you guys actually have authority. I mean, you guys have hope again, or maybe betting, or maybe assumptions, but when you get to that ending balance, if you remove those out there, I mean, this budget is actually negative. And I mean severely negative. So to me, I find it really interesting that you named it Enduring Idaho, mostly because to me it looks like it's a balanced later budget, and I think that would have been probably a little bit more appropriate name. But if you wouldn't mind responding to maybe some of the comments I made within there.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Should have written all those down. I'm going to start with the first comment, which this budget is balanced. We have $32 million on the bottom line for fiscal year 26 and $25.5 million on the bottom line for fiscal year 27.
Can I make one comment in there real quick? So I've gone back throughout history and I've looked throughout those, throughout what we've left at on the bottom line. The only time we've actually done this are the years, was the Great Recession, and we had 3 different years where we left a bottom line that looked like this. And the only reason we did this is that we end up coming back year after year during that one and used our reserve fundings. So to do this, to leave this, I mean, you look at what we left last year, which was about $430 million. And previous years, I mean, we came back in massive supplementals. I mean, largest one being in Medicaid, and it seems like we always are in Medicaid. So, I mean, you look at what Medicaid actually submits in general. I'm not sure if they submit a budget that every year that they know they're going to come back to supplemental because they're too scared to show us the actual numbers, or they're just really not good on the math aspect. But in the end, if I'm just looking at basic math on just the projections of what health and welfare has come back with year after year, again, just that alone, I look at your ending balance and go, that's not going to work. So are you planning based on this, just going like, well, we tried and we're going to use reserve funds going forward?
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, go ahead.
Are you going to let me respond this time?
Yeah, you can respond on that one.
Okay. So first of all,
Okay. Yeah, and that's the thing, Brian. This is a new day. You know, not to denigrate Wendy Horman's work on JFAC or anything like that. But this is a different tone I'm feeling inside that room.
For sure, Representative Tanner has never been shy about sharing his opinion and asking some tough questions and holding the governor and his office and the agencies holding their feet to the fire. And now he is sitting up there on the rostrum, looking down on high, and I'm sure it makes life a little more difficult for Lori Wolf, but it needs to be done. Iron sharpens iron. Let's get through this process and get the most efficient budget possible that focuses on our government's constitutional duties and returns as much money to the people where it actually belongs. What Representative Tanner there said, he following that meeting, he sent out a press release that got a lot of attention, basically expanding on his point that he believes the governor's budget is just essentially smoke and mirrors, I think was Wayne Hoffman's phrase, but I think Representative Tanner called it gimmicks, one-time gimmicks, moving accrued interest from various accounts into the general fund, adopting the Trump tax cuts from the one big beautiful bill for tax year 2026 instead of last year where we're filing our taxes now, and a couple other things, pulling stuff back from various agencies, and it's all well and good. We all want the balanced budget, but the point that Representative Tanner makes and that Fred Birnbaum made earlier is that this is not fixing the structural problems. It's really kicking the can down the road. It's going to kick it down to another governor. Well, except Governor Little is, by all indications, running for re-election, so he might be the one to have to fix it. But it's I think what Representative Tanner there says, it's a balancing on hope, is that my impression is that the governor's office believes we're going to have a really good economy here in the next couple of years, and that'll kind of cover up any issues and just rising tide is going to lift all the boats, and we'll be fine. The question is, what if we're not? And right. The government needs to be prepared for that. I don't think they want to have to come back here in July to fix whatever issues are going on.
Yeah, and that's exactly what he's trying to avoid. Everybody wants to avoid that, and that's why we have what hopefully we won't have the balance later budget, as Tanner so eloquently put it. Now, I want to give people some power here. I want them to understand where they can go, where they can look at this stuff. And so what we have here, we can throw it up on the screen. This is the legislative budget book. Now, this is online. Everything here is online. And
if real quick, if you go to the legislative website, legislature.idaho.gov, maybe you were about to say this, click on budget information on the top menu. And then from there, click on budget book and publications. And then from there, click on legislative budget book.
Yeah, I mean, that's all a pain in the butt, right? We're going to put this link directly into the description of this program, so you guys can have that. But if you missed that, you can follow what Brian just said. But it's all on the legislative website. And basically, we're not going to go through everything on here, obviously. But can you just give us a sense of what's in here? What is this all about? Because it comes out every year.
Yeah, this is a fascinating book. It's actually Fred Birnbaum from IFF who first introduced me to this a couple years ago, and he's been using this as a source for information for many years. You just scroll down to information. You have to click on the left column to expand each area, each section, and then click on each thing. Or you can just download the entire PDF, but that's a really pain to navigate because it tells you who's on JFAC, the staff who are working on these things, and from LSO, and then it tells you what the budget process is. I think that's helpful to know. Obviously, we're already into the budget process because the agencies have been working for months to try and figure out their own budgets. And now they've submitted them along with the governor's recommendation to JFAC, and now it's up to the legislature to actually finalize it. One of the most interesting things, if you go down to number 18, general fund comparisons, this is what I was looking at a lot yesterday. And this tells you a very high-level view of each agency, each section, like education, health and human services, public safety, how much money they were appropriated in fiscal year 2026, which, by the way, the legislative fiscal year, this is important to know, goes from July to June. So fiscal year 2026, we're already 6 months into it. This is the budget that the legislature approved last year in legislative year 2025. So they approved it, they adjourned in April, and then that July, that budget goes into effect, and we're halfway through it now. So the legislature right now is deciding how to handle fiscal year 2027, which will start this July. So it shows you what was appropriated last year for fiscal year 2026, shows you what the governor is recommending, or what the agencies, there's 2 pages here, what the agencies want, and then the second page is what the governor is recommending. The governor is actually recommending a little bit lower than what the agencies want. Maybe it's a negotiating tactic. President Trump would know how that works. You come in with the agencies first, and they want this much, and then the governor comes in and says, "Oh, we can get by with this much," and maybe the legislature really wants to be down here. We'll see what happens.
Yeah, but I mean, it also gives you. I mean, just looking through this, it also gives you sort of this, this real world. I mean, this is what we have to deal with. So if you look at this and you say, "Oh, government shouldn't be involved in anything," it's like, well, here are the things that we're currently involved in funding. So go in here, figure out, give us your opinion. What do you think we don't need? What do you think we can cut? And I mean, this gets really, really detailed, folks. So I highly recommend if you're into this kind of stuff to check it out, because it is very fascinating.
Yeah, this general fund recommendation, that's the high level overview. If you go over to the left and continue scrolling down, you can go into education, you can go into health and human services, right, public safety. You can go into those and get very, very granular. See how much they're spending on employee salaries and benefits. See how much they're spending on equipment. It's every line item is there, and you can go in there and figure it out. And if you have strong opinions, let your legislators know, especially if they're on JFAC. One quirk of the JFAC committee is that there's no public testimony. Every other committee, when they're deliberating bills, you can go in there and speak to the legislators themselves. Not on JFAC. They hear from the agencies, they hear from the governor's people, they hear from stakeholders, I guess you could call them. But if you want them to know something and you see something here that you think needs to be flagged, you got to talk to them directly offline.
Talk to them directly offline, or throw up that graphic, guys. 208-402-4915. We will make sure that JFAC hears those messages and public comment. So there is a JFAC public comment, Brian. It's 208-402-4915. We'll make a new graphic that says that. We can get those voicemails going on. All right, last thing before I let you go. Yesterday was the Ag Day down at the Capitol. What did you see? What did you hear? What can you take away? I don't know if you saw the ad that we played before. I think you've seen it prior. What's your takeaway on what went down at the Capitol yesterday?
Well, I saw them setting up and thought this looks interesting, so I wandered around, and there were all the producers, the Bean Commission and the Barley Commission and the Beef Council and the Dairymen and the Wheat Commission, or I don't know if they're called a commission, but they all have different names for some reason. But they're all these essentially trade organizations that were created by government 50, 60, 70 years ago to promote the sale of these products abroad, whether in other states or even other countries. For example, a lot of our soft white wheat is exported to Asia. I did not know that. So that was fun to learn. And that is different from hard white wheat, which is used for other things. I learned about the University of Idaho is doing a program to figure out how to make better wheat and higher grade. It's higher yield. It's all very interesting. One really interesting conversation I had, I was over at the Beef Council place, and they were serving samples of tri-tip. So that was fantastic. It was terrific. I ran into Representative Steve Birch, our Democrat friend from Boise. And we were both listening as the Beef Council and dairyman people were talking about their stuff. And Representative Birch, he was walking him through to the point where he could explain why we need more immigrant labor. And I was just listening. I was just being polite. But the good representative made sure to tell him that I oppose immigration, and I also write about things. But we had a good conversation. I explained that I just want to learn from the people who are actually hands-on in this. And the man I was talking to has like 250 employees. Most of them are foreign migrants, foreign workers. And he was talking about how he needs the stability in the workforce. And I was asking, well, you always say that no Americans want to do these jobs, so you have to go abroad. Have you tried? What do you do to hire Americans? Do you actually try? And he says, well, we put notices in the newspaper. And usually the people we end up getting are they fail their drug tests. So I don't know. Maybe that's the case. But it seems like we're both seeing a problem here. They see a problem that they need a stable workforce, and the only way they can think of to do it is by bringing in immigrants on visas.
And advertising in the newspaper.
Yeah, I see a problem that I see a problem that we are becoming too reliant on foreign labor. And what is that going to do to our culture and our communities? So I think I love your ad. I'd love to promote more American involvement in this workforce, hopefully by people who can pass their drug tests.
Yeah, for sure. All right, Brian, great job. Great work as always. Where can people follow you and keep up?
On X at Brian Ullman or gemstatechronicle.com. I'll hopefully have a new article out today.
Fantastic. All right, Brian, we'll see you tomorrow.
Thanks.
Okay, special guest coming up right now. Let's get right to it. I don't want to delay because Lily Allman was down at the Capitol. We saw her a couple days ago, and now she's back home in her humble abode. Lily, welcome to the program. What was your take down at the Capitol? Was this the first time at the Boise Capitol? Tell us all about it.
Yeah, it was my first time down in Boise since starting in the Know, Idaho, and first time at the Capitol. So it was super fun. There was a lot of people to meet. Kind of went around, and it was funny kind of being recognized by some people down there. Like they've seen my videos or whatever. So yeah, it was really cool just to be in the middle of everything and see what's going on.
That's great. Now, were you able to attend the governor's address?
I listened to it.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I guess tell me kind of like what's the energy like down there for you? I mean, I know you said people were recognizing you, but in general, did you walk into it and feel like, oh, this is this swampy, horrible place, or did it feel like no, people are actually trying to do something good? I mean, what was the mix like?
Oh yeah, it was really interesting because I got to go to DC in October, and so I kind of got to see what the swamp feels like, and compared to Idaho, Idaho comparatively is much more friendly, and it's a Republican state, so I'm sure that plays into it. I'm living in the state where the majority is in control. But yeah, very friendly atmosphere, hard workers, really open and accessible as far as the Capitol goes. Like I didn't realize that they've got a gift shop in there. They do tours all the time. The protesters are allowed to come in and say whatever they need to say. They bring their signs and stuff like that. There were handmaidens walking around the halls when I was there. Lots of activity, and yeah, just it was really like friendly. That's how I would describe it.
Yeah, even the protesters were friendly, right?
Oh yeah, they were handing out like snacks and stuff. I don't even know.
Oh, that's the kind of protest I want to go to. Okay, so now I have to ask you here. Over this summer we had this horrible, the horrible assassination of Charlie Kirk. It's really galvanized people his age and younger, and folks like you and so forth. And I've seen an uptick not only in the sort of spiritual engagement that people have, but also their political activism and their desire to want to, carry on Charlie's message, engage and do their own thing, or simply just like pay attention more. What has been your experience among your friends and your followers out there on social media when it relates to that and what you've seen over the last 4 months?
Oh yeah, absolutely. So I've had a ton of people reaching out to me since September, whether it's been in person or through social media. People are just trying to figure out how they can get involved because they realize that they're not just bystanders anymore. This got very personal, and they need to do something about it. So I'm seeing people try to get involved at the local level, trying to get involved with the local party, volunteering. There's like interns down at the Capitol right now who are newly involved, assisting some of our representatives and stuff like that. So there's a ton going on, and it's really exciting to see.
That's great to hear. That's so great to hear. All right. Well, what are you working on? What's next? What's coming down the pike? I know we've got some videos lined up to debut here on the program in the weeks ahead here, but what are you working on?
Yeah, so on my Instagram, since I was just in Boise, I was able to go around and film some stuff. I went down to the city hall to get a video of that pride flag that's still up there. It's actually the progress flag. It's not just the plain stripes. It's the one with the triangle on it. So I have a couple more videos from when I was down there. I was able to go around and just actually see for myself what's happening in the Boise area. So I'll be posting some of that on my social medias. It's In the Know Idaho everywhere. And yeah, as far as the Signal goes, I'm excited to premiere some interesting stuff, and you're just gonna have to wait and see what we come up with here.
All right. Well, there's your Instagram page, In the Know Idaho. You can see it right there on the screen. Lily Allman, thanks for joining us. We're so glad to have you back for another session. And you plan on going down to Boise again too, or
I hope so. I would love to. Yeah.
Okay, great.
Definitely.
All right. Well, we'll have you back soon. And yeah, you've already shared your socials, so that's good. Any last words you want to say?
Oh boy. Well, I'm excited for all the stuff that's going to be coming up this session. I attended the GOP winter meeting and got to hear a lot of the resolutions that they came up with, which they're going to be presenting to the legislature, asking them to act on that. So there's some cool ones in there. There's one about parental rights when it comes to education, wanting to enshrine that constitutionally so that the government isn't taking on a role that's not actually theirs. You know, like children are given to parents and families. It's the parents' responsibility ultimately to educate their children. But the state of Idaho has this wording in our constitution where they've kind of taken it upon themselves to put themselves in the role of the educator. So that's an interesting resolution I'm going to be keeping an eye on. And there's a lot of other good ones. There's one honoring Charlie Kirk. There's one trying to prohibit Sharia law. So there's going to be a lot of interesting stuff to keep an eye on this session.
Fantastic. All right. Well, I'm glad you've got your eyes fixed on a lot of this stuff. That's great.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Excellent. All right, Lily. Well, we'll check back in with you later. Can't wait to see your next content.
Awesome.
All right.
See you later.
Time. All right. Yeah. In the Know Idaho. Very, very good. Love that stuff there. Very funny stuff. And very informative. It's not just humor. That's the whole point. Like when you can get, she has such a gift to be able to get this stuff across with humor, and definitely some snark, a lot of snark factor, from that Allman chick. Okay. Where are we? Is that it? Do we cover everything? We cover everything. No more guests waiting in the wings. No, we're good. Folks, IdahoSignal.com. Do you guys have that ready? Probably not. IdahoSignal.com is where you can go to support the program. We have had a tremendous outpouring of support, generous donations from folks all across the state. And you guys have been really the backbone of what we do here. Every time the bell rings, so to speak, and a donation comes in, I'm truly, truly humbled and grateful by it. But if you head over to IdahoSignal.com, you'll be able to, there it is, you'll be able to watch our awesome sizzle reel at the top there. But down near the bottom, you can see that you can sign up for a monthly donation, one-time donation, but that everything there goes towards the production of the program, and we really do appreciate your involvement. And if you want to sponsor us, and then just shoot me an email, and we can set something else up as well. That's great. And then also, IdahoSignal.live is where you can tune in. If you're on the road, if you're out in the fields or something, you can only get a small signal and you can't run video. You can just go to IdahoSignal.live, and it is always on. It's just like repeating itself. The most recent show is just repeating itself. So you can go over there 24/7, IdahoSignal.live, and listen in your earbuds over there. Oh, that's what it actually looks like. That's pretty cool. This is very basic, very simple. Very simple. All you got to do is hit that button, and then it goes. Boom. That's it. That's all you got to do. Now, there's one thing that I wanted to make sure we get right because I haven't been able to do it since we've been back on the air, and that's just to play a little bit of outro music as we send you off into the great white world of snow. And I don't know if the snow's falling where you're at. It's been falling where I am. So hopefully it falls everywhere because it's a beautiful, nice to have that snow around. So anyway, we'll be back here tomorrow. More guests, more topics, and please, we'd love to have your voicemail. So give us a call or send us in an email. We'll see you next time, folks. Take care.
I think it puts a stake in the ground that says we have a sovereign right to protect what's ours.